The silver pen was already moving toward the signature line when Sarah saw it. Her hand trembled, hot coffee sloshing against the rim of the porcelain cup she'd been holding for the past 40 seconds. Nobody noticed. They never did. To the 8 lawyers and executives packed into the 42nd floor boardroom, she was furniture. Background noise in a tailored black vest and white shirt. Another faceless employee, keeping their caffeine flowing while they carved up millions. But Sarah's eyes had locked onto something they'd all missed. 3 words. Handwritten in blue ink, so faint it was nearly invisible against the cream-colored paper. Tucked in the margin of page 73, where the acquisition terms bled into the liability clauses. Retroactive indemnity waiver. Her father's voice exploded in her memory, sharp as the day he'd gripped her shoulders in their cramped kitchen 6 months before the cancer took him. Sarah, listen to me. If you ever see those 3 words together in a contract, someone's about to lose everything. It's a trap disguised as protection. Promise me you'll never sign anything with that clause. Promise me. She'd promised. Now, across the gleaming mahogany table, Ethan Redmayne, tech billionaire, youngest CEO to ever take a company public, the man whose face graced magazine covers with headlines like "The Visionary Who Never Sleeps," was about to sign his empire away. He didn't know it yet. Nobody did. Mr. Redmayne, if you'd just initial here, and sign at the bottom. The lead attorney, a silver-haired shark in a suit worth more than Sarah's annual salary, tapped the document with a manicured nail. We can finalize the Chromatech acquisition before the market opens. Your lawyers have reviewed everything thoroughly. It's bulletproof. Sarah's pulse hammered against her ribs. The coffee cup was burning her palm now, but she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away from that margin note, or from Ethan's hand hovering over the paper, the pen's tip catching the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a city still waking up, unaware that the man who'd revolutionized their smartphones, their cars, their very lives, was 60 seconds from annihilation. The lawyers smiled. Sharks who'd just tasted blood. And Sarah finally understood. This wasn't a mistake. This was murder dressed in legalese. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having an amazing day, wherever you are in this incredible world. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And hey, if you're loving these stories of courage, mystery, and those heart-stopping moments when ordinary people do extraordinary things, please hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this one. This story, it's going to blow your mind. But first, let me take you back to where this all begins. To a boardroom that smells like expensive cologne and desperation. To a moment where everything hangs in the balance. Sarah's training screamed at her, don't speak unless spoken to. Don't interrupt. Don't make eye contact. Don't exist beyond your function. She'd followed those rules for 2 years at Sterling and Holt, the most prestigious corporate law firm in the city. 2 years of invisible service, of pouring coffee and clearing plates while deals that shaped industries happened around her like she was a ghost. 2 years of saving every penny from her wages and tips, trying to finish the accounting degree her father had started paying for before the medical bills devoured everything. 2 years of being nobody. Ethan's pen touched paper. Wait. The word left her throat before her brain could stop it, before fear could strangle it, before common sense could remind her that she was a 24-year-old waitress with a half-finished degree and a dead father's warnings, standing in a room full of people who billed $400 for every 6 minutes of their time. 8 heads snapped toward her. 16 eyes, cold as the coffee going lukewarm in her shaking hand. Ethan Redmayne looked up last. His eyes, a startling shade of gray that photos never quite captured, found hers across the table. For a moment, just a heartbeat, something flickered in them. Curiosity? Recognition? Then the lead attorney's voice cut through the air like a blade. Excuse me. Sarah's supervisor, Janet, materialized in the doorway, her face already flushing crimson. I am so sorry, Mr. Fisher. Sarah, what on earth do you think you're? Page 73. Sarah's voice was steadier now, fueled by something she couldn't name. Her father's ghost, maybe, or the kind of reckless courage that only ignites when you've got nothing left to lose. The handwritten note in the margin. The retroactive indemnity waiver. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Ethan's pen stopped moving. What did you say? Fisher's jaw tightened. Mr. Redmayne, I assure you, this is highly inappropriate. The young lady is clearly confused. Page 73. Ethan's voice wasn't loud, but it cut Fisher off mid-sentence. He flipped through the contract, those gray eyes scanning each page with sudden intensity. Sarah watched his face change, watched the exact moment he found it. The blood drained from his face so fast she thought he might collapse. Someone explain this to me. His voice was dangerously quiet now. Someone explain why there's a clause in my contract that my lawyers somehow failed to mention. A clause that would make me personally liable for every lawsuit, every patent dispute, every skeleton in Chromateca's closet going back 15 years. The lawyers erupted. A symphony of denial, of technical explanations, of if you just let us explain the context. But Sarah saw what they were really doing. Saw them exchange glances. Saw Fisher's hand drift toward his phone. Saw the trap closing even as it was being exposed. And she saw Ethan Redmayne look at her again. Really look at her this time. With an expression she couldn't read, but that made something in her chest catch fire. "Who are you?" he asked. Before she could answer, before the lawyers could hustle her out, before her supervisor could fire her on the spot, the boardroom door burst open. A woman in a blood-red suit strode in, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "So sorry I'm late, gentlemen. Traffic was murder." She extended a hand to Ethan. "Samantha Gamble, Chromateca's CEO. I believe we have some papers to sign." Her eyes found Sarah. Recognition flashed across her face. Cold, calculating recognition. And Sarah realized with crystalline horror that this woman knew exactly what that margin note said. That she'd written it herself. That Sarah hadn't just stumbled into a corporate deal gone wrong. She'd walked straight into the middle of a carefully orchestrated execution. And now, she was a witness they couldn't afford to leave breathing. Part 2. Character Foundation. The thing about being invisible is that you see everything. Sarah had learned that lesson in the foster homes, shuffled between families who barely remembered her name. She'd perfected it in high school, where being the scholarship kid with thrift store clothes meant mastering the art of occupying space without taking up room. And she'd weaponized it at Sterling and Holt, where watching people when they thought no one was looking had taught her more about human nature than any psychology textbook ever could. Right now, what she saw terrified her. Samantha Gamble's smile never reached her eyes. Those eyes, a shade of green that reminded Sarah of poisoned apples and fairy tales, were calculating the exact value of Sarah's silence. Or her death. The math was happening behind that flawless makeup and designer suit, as cold and precise as an algorithm. "Ms. Gamble," Fisher recovered first, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "We weren't expecting you until after the signing." Clearly, Samantha's heels clicked against the marble floor as she circled the table, each step deliberate, predatory. "Though it seems we have a more immediate problem than paperwork." Her gaze never left Sarah. "Your coffee girl has quite the eye for detail." "She's nobody." Janet had finally found her voice, grabbing Sarah's arm hard enough to bruise. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Redmayne, Mr. Fisher. She'll be terminated immediately." "She stays." Everyone froze. Ethan's voice carried an authority that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. He was standing now, the contract forgotten, his full attention on Sarah like a spotlight she desperately wanted to escape. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sarah Chun." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I work in hospitality services. I serve coffee during morning briefings. And you know about retroactive indemnity waivers because—" The question hung in the air. Sarah could feel Janet's fingernails digging into her arm, could see Fisher and his team of lawyers tensing like wolves ready to pounce, could sense Samantha's amusement at watching the scene unfold. But all she could really see was her father, Robert Chun, accountant for a mid-sized firm, who'd spent his last coherent weeks warning her about the predators in expensive suits, who'd made her promise to finish her degree, to learn the language of money and power so she'd never be defenseless against it, who died because he'd found something he wasn't supposed to see in his company's books, and the stress of threatening to expose it had triggered the heart attack that the cancer-weakened body couldn't survive. "My father was an accountant," Sarah said quietly. "Before he died, he taught me to read contracts. Said it was the only way people like us could protect ourselves from people like—" She caught herself. "From being exploited." The air in the room shifted. Sarah saw something flash across Ethan's face. Recognition, maybe. Or respect. It was gone too quickly to name. "Smart man." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Fisher," explained the clause. Now, the lawyer's composure cracked. Mr. Redmayne, if we could discuss this privately. No. Ethan's voice could have cut steel. You've had 6 months to discuss things privately. 6 months of telling me this acquisition was clean, that Chromatech's patents were golden, that Samantha Gamble was a visionary entrepreneur looking to cash out and retire. He turned to Samantha. Except you're not retiring, are you? Samantha's smile widened. Oh, Ethan, you were always too smart for your own good. Sarah watched the dynamic shift. These weren't strangers meeting for a business deal. There was history here, sharp and jagged as broken glass. We dated, Ethan said, not to Samantha, but to Sarah, as if he needed her to understand. 3 years ago, before I took Redmayne Technologies public, before she started Chromatech. He looked back at Samantha. Before I was stupid enough to believe you'd changed. Changed? Samantha laughed, the sound like crystal shattering. Darling, I never pretended to be anything but exactly what I am. You just chose to see what you wanted to see. A brilliant engineer who needed funding. A partner who understood your vision. She picked up the contract, her manicured nail tracing the margin notes Sarah had spotted. Love makes people so wonderfully blind. Sarah's stomach dropped. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was revenge. The patents are fake. Sarah heard herself say it before she'd fully processed the thought. But suddenly, horribly, it all made sense. Chromatech doesn't have anything worth billions. You built a company on stolen ideas and fraudulent claims, and you needed someone with deep pockets to acquire it before everything collapsed. But you needed insurance. So you buried a clause that would make Mr. Redmayne personally liable for all of it. When the lawsuits start, when the truth comes out, he'll be destroyed. And you'll be long gone. Samantha finished. With $5 billion and a new identity in a country without extradition treaties. Really, Sarah? May I call you Sarah? You should have been an attorney. That mind is wasted on coffee service. The compliment felt like a snake wrapping around Sarah's throat. You can't do this, Janet whispered, though Sarah wasn't sure if she was talking to Samantha or to Sarah herself. I already have, darling. Samantha set down the contract. The question now is what we do about our observant little waitress. Ethan won't sign now, obviously, which means my exit strategy needs adjustment. And witnesses are so problematic. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Ethan moved before anyone else could react, stepping between Sarah and Samantha with a protective instinct that shocked everyone in the room. If you think I'm letting you touch her. Oh, please. Samantha rolled her eyes. I'm not going to kill her in a building full of lawyers and security cameras. I'm not stupid, Ethan. Just opportunistic. She checked her watch. Though I should mention that my associate, Mr. Kozlov, is currently in the parking garage with a rather compelling story about Ms. Chen stealing from the firm. Security footage has already been edited. Her apartment will be searched within the hour, where they'll find $50,000 in cash and several confidential client files. Sarah couldn't breathe. You're framing me. Insurance, darling. In case things went sideways. Samantha's smile was all teeth now. Sign the contract, Ethan, and I'll make the evidence disappear. Your little hero goes free. Refuse, and she goes to prison for corporate espionage. Your choice. The boardroom had become a cage. Sarah could feel the walls closing in, could see the trap's full scope. Samantha had planned for everything. Every contingency. Every possible outcome. Except one. Sarah looked at Ethan Redmayne. Really looked at him for the first time. Not as a billionaire CEO, not as the face on magazine covers, but as a man who'd just realized the woman he'd once loved had spent 3 years building an elaborate trap to destroy him, and who was now being given the choice between his empire and a stranger's freedom. His gray eyes met hers. In them, she saw something that made her chest ache. Not pity, not calculation, recognition, as if he saw in her what she saw in herself. Someone who'd spent their whole life fighting to matter in a world that insisted they were invisible. No, Ethan said quietly. Samantha blinked. Excuse me. I said no. He turned to face her fully. You're not going to frame her. You're not going to get your $5 billion. And you're definitely not walking out of here free. Samantha's laugh was genuine this time, edged with disbelief. Ethan, darling, you're not thinking clearly. I have lawyers, resources, contingency plans for my contingency plans. You have nothing but a waitress's word against an army of professionals who've covered every track. No, Sarah said, her voice stronger now. He has something better. Everyone looked at her. He has the truth. And he has me. The words hung in the air for exactly 3 seconds before everything exploded. Fisher lunged for the contract, but Ethan was faster, snatching it off the table and holding it out of reach. Security. The lawyer barked into his phone. Boardroom 3. Now. Belay that. Ethan snapped, his voice carrying the weight of a man who'd built an empire from a college dorm room. Fisher, you're fired. All of you are fired. His eyes swept across the legal team. Get out of my building. You can't fire us mid-representation, Fisher sputtered. The ethics rules. Watch me. Ethan pulled his own phone from his pocket, fingers flying across the screen. I'm also freezing the acquisition, launching an internal investigation, and calling the SEC. You have 60 seconds to leave before I have you arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud. The lawyers scattered like roaches when the lights turn on. All except Fisher, who stood his ground with the desperation of a man watching his career implode. You're making a mistake, Redmayne. You have no proof. He has me. Sarah's voice was stronger now, fueled by adrenaline and the reckless courage of someone who'd already lost everything that mattered. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything I saw. Fisher's face went purple. You're nobody. A coffee girl with a drug addict father who killed himself. The crack of Ethan's fist meeting Fisher's jaw echoed through the boardroom like a gunshot. The lawyer crumpled, blood streaming from his split lip. Janet screamed. Samantha just smiled, slow and satisfied, like she'd been waiting for exactly this kind of chaos. My father, Sarah said, her voice shaking now, but not with fear, with fury, died of a heart attack because people like you destroyed him for trying to do the right thing. He was the best man I ever knew. Don't you dare speak about him. Ethan was breathing hard, shaking out his bruised knuckles. Sarah, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She should have said no. Should have run from this boardroom full of billionaires and criminals. From this man she'd known for all of 10 minutes. From this nightmare that was spiraling further out of control with every passing second. Instead, she nodded. Good. Ethan grabbed her hand. His palm was warm, calloused in a way that surprised her, like he still remembered what it meant to build things with his own hands. Because we're leaving. Now. You're not going anywhere. Samantha's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. She'd moved to block the door, and suddenly Sarah noticed what she hadn't before. The woman's suit jacket was unbuttoned, and there was a bulge at her hip that made Sarah's blood run cold. You're armed. Ethan's voice dropped to a dangerous register. In a corporate building? Sam, what the hell? Insurance, darling. I told you. Samantha's hand rested casually on her hip, not quite touching the weapon, but close enough to make the threat crystal clear. You're going to sign that contract. And Ms. Chun is going to forget everything she saw, or I'm going to ensure that the evidence of her crimes becomes very, very public. Her fingerprints are already on those stolen files. Her DNA is on the cache. By the time the police finish with her, she'll be lucky to see daylight before she's 40. Sarah felt the room tilt. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. You won't shoot us, Ethan said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. There are cameras. Witnesses. Are there? Samantha glanced up at the ceiling corners where the security cameras should have been. Sarah followed her gaze and felt her stomach drop. The little red recording lights were dark. Did you really think I'd orchestrate this entire operation without controlling the security system? Ethan, I'm disappointed. You taught me better than that. The confession hit Sarah like a physical blow. You taught her. We built Chromatech together. Ethan's voice was hollow. The initial concept, the prototype, it was our side project. Before everything went public with Redmayne Tech. Before. He looked at Samantha with something that might have been grief. Before I found out she'd been stealing proprietary code from my servers and selling it to our competitors. Before you chose your company over me, Samantha corrected, her voice suddenly ice cold. Before you had me escorted out like a criminal instead of your partner. Before you took everything we built together and claimed it as yours. You were committing corporate espionage. I was surviving. For the first time, Samantha's composure cracked. You had venture capital, family money, connections. I had nothing but my brain and the code we wrote together. You got to be the visionary billionaire. I got a non-compete clause and a reputation as a thief. The raw pain in her voice startled Sarah. This wasn't just revenge. This was a woman who believed she'd been wronged, who'd spent 3 years nursing that wound until it became something twisted and dangerous. So you built a fake company, Sarah said quietly, piecing it together. Used stolen patents and fraudulent claims to make it look valuable. Hired lawyers you could compromise. Planted that clause in the contract. All to destroy Ethan the way you felt he destroyed you. Samantha's green eyes focused on Sarah with sudden, sharp interest. You really are wasted on coffee service. Tell me, Sarah Chun, what would you do if someone took everything from you? Your dreams, your work, your future? Would you just accept it? Move on? Or would you burn their empire to the ground? The question felt like a trap, but Sarah answered honestly. I'd fight back, but I wouldn't become a monster to do it. How noble. Samantha's smile returned, but there was something broken behind it. Let's see how noble you feel when you're in prison. Ethan, pick up the pen. No. The single word came from Sarah, not Ethan. She stepped forward, pulling her hand from Ethan's grip, moving between him and Samantha with a courage she didn't know she possessed. You're not going to shoot us, Sarah said. Because if you do, you lose everything. No $5 billion. No escape plan. Just murder charges and life in prison. You're too smart for that. Am I? Samantha's hand moved to her hip. Yes. Sarah's heart was trying to break through her ribcage, but she kept her voice steady. You're angry. You're hurt. You feel betrayed. But you're not a killer, Miss Gamble. You're an engineer. A builder. Someone who spent 3 years constructing an elaborate revenge plot, because planning and executing is what you do. Murder? That's chaos. That's losing control. And you never lose control. For a long moment, Samantha just stared at her. The boardroom was so quiet Sarah could hear her own pulse in her ears. Then Samantha laughed, a real laugh this time, startled and almost genuine. God, Ethan, where did you find her? She found me, Ethan said softly. He'd moved to stand beside Sarah, presenting a united front. Sam, please. Let's end this. Turn over the evidence. Come clean about Chromatech. I'll make sure you get credit for your contributions to the original code. We can fix this. Fix this. Samantha's laughter died. You can't fix 3 years of hell, Ethan. You can't fix what you took from me. No, Sarah said. But you can stop it from taking anything else. You can walk away before you become exactly what people accused you of being. The words hit their mark. Sarah saw it in the way Samantha's shoulders tensed, in the flicker of doubt that crossed her face. Then the boardroom door burst open. A man built like a tank filled the doorway, shaved head, dead eyes, expensive suit that couldn't hide the violence underneath. We have a problem, he said in a thick Russian accent. Police are here. Someone called about the altered security footage. Samantha's face went white. That's impossible. I controlled. Not all of it. Ethan held up his phone, a slight smile playing at his lips. My private security has been recording everything on a separate system since you walked in. And yes, I sent the footage to the police. And the SEC. And the FBI. He looked at Samantha with something that might have been regret. I'm sorry, Sam. But this ends now. The Russian, Kozlov, Sarah realized, reached into his jacket. And everything went to hell. Ethan threw himself at Sarah, tackling her to the ground as Kozlov's hand cleared his jacket. The world became a blur of marble floor and screaming and the deafening crack of furniture splintering. Not a gunshot. A chair. Sarah looked up from where Ethan had shielded her with his body to see Samantha standing over Kozlov, a broken chair leg in her hands, the Russian crumpled at her feet. Are you insane? Samantha hissed at her enforcer. I said no killing. No violence. You were supposed to be my exit strategy, not my murder charge. He was going to shoot us, Sarah breathed, her ribs aching from where Ethan's weight had slammed into her. Yes, well. Samantha dropped the chair leg like it burned her fingers. Turns out I'm not quite ready to add accessory to murder to my resume. She looked at Ethan, something complicated flickering across her face. I really did love you, you know. Before everything went wrong. Sam. Ethan started, but the sound of police radios crackling in the hallway cut him off. Don't. Samantha backed toward the window, her hand fumbling for something in her pocket. Don't make this harder than it has to be. She pulled out a flash drive, held it up. Everything's on here. The fake patents, the fraudulent investors, the paper trail. Fisher was the mastermind. I was just the face. He approached me 2 years ago with the plan. Said you'd ruined enough lives, that someone needed to take you down. You expect me to believe you're innocent in this? Ethan's voice was raw. No, I'm guilty as hell. But I'm not the monster you think I am. Samantha tossed the drive. It clattered across the marble, stopping at Sarah's feet. The evidence against Ms. Chun is on there too. Delete it. She deserves better than to be collateral damage in our war. Sarah picked up the drive with trembling fingers. Why are you helping us? Because you were right. Samantha's smile was bitter. I'm not a killer. I'm just someone who let anger turn her into someone she doesn't recognize. She glanced at the window behind her. 42 floors up, reinforced glass, no escape. Ethan, there's something else. Chromatech isn't completely fake. There's one patent that's real. Revolutionary, actually. Neural interface technology that could change everything. Ethan went very still. That's impossible. We scrapped that project years ago. The technology wasn't ready. I finished it. For the first time, genuine pride crept into Samantha's voice. Spent 3 years in my garage, solving the problems we couldn't crack together. It works, Ethan. It actually works. The patent's buried in the Chromatech portfolio under a dummy name. File number TC 2847. It's worth more than everything else combined. Then why? Sarah started. Because I wanted him to lose it. Samantha's voice cracked. I wanted him to sign that contract, acquire my company, and then watch it all crumble. The lawsuits, the scandal, the bankruptcy. And when he was at his lowest, when he'd lost everything, I was going to reveal that the one thing of value, my neural interface, was never part of the deal. It had a separate ownership clause he'd never see coming. The cruelty of it took Sarah's breath away. 3 years of brilliance devoted entirely to revenge. But you're telling me now, Ethan said quietly. Because she's right about who I am. Samantha looked at Sarah with something almost like respect. I'm not a monster. Not yet. Maybe not ever. If I stop this now. The police radios were getting louder. The patent's yours, Ethan. Use it. Change the world the way we always talked about. Just remember that I helped build it. Even if you never say my name. Sam, don't. But Samantha was already moving, sprinting not toward the door, but toward the emergency stairwell. The police burst into the boardroom seconds later, guns drawn, shouting orders. Ethan raised his hands. Sarah did the same, the flash drive clutched in her palm. In the chaos that followed, statements and paramedics and executives flooding in, Kozlov being dragged away in handcuffs, Janet sobbing apologies, Sarah lost track of time. Lost track of everything except Ethan's hand finding hers in the crowd, squeezing once, grounding her. You saved my life, he said when they finally had a moment alone in his private office, the city spreading out below them in afternoon sunlight that felt surreal after the morning's darkness. Twice. First with the contract, then with Sam. If you hadn't talked her down. She talked herself down, Sarah said. She was sitting in a chair that probably cost more than her rent, wearing a borrowed blazer because her server's vest had been taken as evidence. She just needed someone to remind her who she really was. Still, Ethan paced the office, energy radiating off him. I owe you everything. Name it. A job, money, anything you want. I want to finish my degree. The words came out before Sarah could stop them. I want to become an accountant like my father. I want to learn how to protect people from predators in expensive suits. She met his eyes. No offense. His laugh was startled, genuine. None taken. I'll pay for it. Full ride, any school you want. No. Sarah stood, meeting him eye to eye. I'm not a charity case, Mr. Redmayne. But I will accept a job. A real one. In your legal compliance department, once I have my degree. And I'll expect to be paid fairly and promoted on merit. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, yes, but something else too. Something that made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear. You're serious. Deadly. He smiled. A real smile this time, not the polished CEO version from magazine covers. Deal. But call me Ethan. Mr. Redmayne is my father, and trust me, you don't want to be compared to him. Deal. Sarah held out her hand. And Ethan, thank you. For believing me. For protecting me. For not signing that contract. His hand engulfed hers, warm and solid. Thank you for caring enough about a stranger to risk everything. He didn't let go. Sarah, there's something you should know. The neural interface patent Sam mentioned, if it's real, if it works, it's going to draw attention. Dangerous attention. Competitors, corporate spies, people who do worse than frame you to get their hands on it. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. His gray eyes were serious now. This isn't over. Fisher's in custody, but he was working with others. Sam's in the wind. Police lost her in the stairwell somehow. And that flash drive you're holding? It makes you a target. Sarah looked down at the small device in her palm. Such a tiny thing to hold so much power. So much danger. Then I guess it's a good thing I don't scare easily. She handed him the drive. But you should probably put this somewhere secure. Maybe a bank vault. Or I could have my head of security make copies and ensure the information gets to the right people. Ethan's smile turned calculating. Fisher thought he could use my lawyers against me. Let's show him what happens when I use the law the right way. Over the next 3 hours, Sarah watched Ethan Redmayne transform from besieged CEO to avenging angel. He called in favors, mobilized attorneys who weren't corrupt, coordinated with federal investigators. The flash drive's contents spread through law enforcement like wildfire. Fisher's conspiracy went deeper than anyone imagined, touching half a dozen major corporations. And through it all, Ethan kept Sarah close. Not as an afterthought or a witness to be managed, but as a partner. He asked her opinion, valued her insights, treated her like an equal even though she'd served him coffee that morning. "You're good at this," she said as the sun began setting over the city. "At what?" "Seeing people. Really seeing them." Sarah thought of how invisible she'd been just hours ago. "You saw me when everyone else looked right through me." Ethan turned from the window, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "How could I not? You're the bravest person I've ever met. You risked everything, your job, your freedom, your life, to warn a stranger about danger. That's not invisible, Sarah. That's extraordinary." The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither was quite ready to name. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read the message. "What is it?" Sarah asked. "Sam." She sent a text. He turned the phone so Sarah could see. "The patent wasn't the only thing I finished. Check your apartment. You're going to want to see this." "And Ethan? I'm sorry. For everything." Sarah's blood ran cold. That sounds like a threat. Or a warning. Ethan was already moving toward the door. "Either way, we need to go. Now." Sarah hurried after him. "Ethan, this could be dangerous. Which is exactly why I'm not letting you out of my sight." He looked back at her, jaw set with determination. "You're in this now, Sarah Chun. Like it or not, we're in this together." Ethan's penthouse apartment occupied the entire top floor of a building that had been featured in architectural magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city like a glittering kingdom. Minimalist furniture, abstract art, technology integrated so seamlessly it was almost invisible. Sarah had never felt more out of place in her life. "Stay behind me," Ethan said as he keyed in the security code. The door clicked open. Nothing looked disturbed. No signs of forced entry, no obvious threats. Just a small box sitting on the kitchen island, wrapped in plain brown paper. "Don't touch it," Sarah warned, her father's paranoid caution echoing in her mind. "It could be. It's not a bomb." Ethan approached carefully anyway, circling the package like it might bite. "Sam's dramatic, but she's not homicidal." "Not really." He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. There was a note attached. Ethan's hand trembled slightly as he read it aloud. "Ethan, inside this box is the only working prototype of the neural interface. I built it for us, for the dream we shared before everything went wrong. It reads thought patterns, translates them to digital commands. Seamless human-computer integration. It's worth billions, maybe trillions. But more than that, it's proof that we could have changed the world together. I'm leaving it with you because I trust you to use it right. Because despite everything, you're still the man I fell in love with. The one who wanted to make technology serve humanity, not the other way around. Don't let what I've become poison what we built. The password to activate it is the date of our first kiss. You remember. You always remembered everything. Goodbye, Ethan. I hope you find someone who deserves you. Someone brave enough to see past the money and the power to the man underneath. I think maybe you already have." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah watched emotions flicker across Ethan's face. Grief, anger, regret, something softer she couldn't name. When he finally looked at her, his eyes were too bright. "She's really gone," he said quietly. "This is her way of saying goodbye. Or it's a trap." Sarah hated how cynical she sounded, but someone had to stay grounded. "Ethan, she tried to destroy you this morning. She had Kozlov ready too." "I know." He opened the box with careful fingers. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was something that looked like a sleek headband made of brushed metal and circuitry. Beautiful. Alien. "But this is real. I can tell." Sam wouldn't fake this. It was too important to her. To us. He lifted the device out, and Sarah's breath caught. Even she could see it was extraordinary. The craftsmanship, the elegant design, the way the circuits seemed to flow like artwork. The date of your first kiss, Sarah said. Do you remember it? Ethan's laugh was hollow. October 15th. 3 years ago. We were working late in my garage, debugging code for what would become Redmayne Tech's breakthrough product. She made some joke about my terrible coffee. I said something back, and suddenly we were kissing and everything made sense. He set the device down. For about 6 months, everything made sense. What happened? I caught her selling proprietary code to a competitor. When I confronted her, she said she deserved compensation, that she'd done half the work, but I got all the credit because my name was on the company. She wasn't wrong. His voice cracked. I was so focused on growth, on success, I never thought about how it looked from her perspective. How invisible she must have felt. The word hit Sarah like a physical blow. Invisible. The story of her entire life, now weaponized in someone else's revenge plot. So you understand her, Sarah said carefully. Why she did this. Understanding doesn't mean forgiving. Ethan picked up the neural interface again. But maybe it means not hating her. Maybe it means learning from it. He looked at Sarah. You spoke up today. When everyone would have stayed silent. When it would have been safer to be invisible. You spoke up. Do you know how rare that is? I spoke up because my father taught me to. Sarah moved closer, drawn by something in his voice. He said silence makes us complicit. That good people who do nothing are just as responsible as bad people who do harm. Your father sounds like he was an incredible man. He was. And he'd tell me right now that we need to test that device before we trust it. That Samantha Gamble is brilliant and wounded and desperate, which makes her unpredictable. Ethan smiled. You're right. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. He paused, then asked quietly, will you help me? Test it, I mean. I'll need someone monitoring the readings, someone I trust to pull me out if something goes wrong. You're seriously going to put that thing on your head? It's what I do. I test technology, push boundaries, take risks. His gray eyes held hers. But I'd rather have someone watching my back. Someone who sees things others miss. The request felt like more than just asking for help. It felt like an invitation into his world, his work, his life. Okay, Sarah heard herself say. But we do this smart. Medical monitoring, kill switches, the whole protocol. And if anything seems wrong, you pull the plug. I trust you. Those 3 words carried more weight than any contract. They spent the next hour setting up. Ethan called in his personal physician, Dr. Reeves, who arrived with portable EEG equipment and a healthy dose of skepticism. Sarah downloaded monitoring software, cross-referencing the neural interface specifications that Sam had included in the box. This is insane, Dr. Reeves muttered as he attached electrodes to Ethan's temples. Untested technology directly interfacing with your brain is exactly what every breakthrough requires, Ethan finished. Someone willing to be first. He activated the device with the date Sam had mentioned. It hummed to life, a soft blue glow emanating from the circuits. And Ethan's entire body went rigid. Ethan, Sarah lunged forward, but Dr. Reeves caught her arm. Wait, look at the monitors. The EEG readings were unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. Patterns forming and dissolving, neural pathways lighting up like fireworks, but Ethan wasn't seizing. His eyes were open, focused, and impossibly, he was smiling. I can see it, he breathed. The entire network. My company's servers, the security systems, the development projects. It's all there. In my mind. I can touch it. Control it. My God, Sam actually did it. What do you see? Sarah asked, unable to look away from his face, transfigured by wonder. Everything. And his expression changed. The wonder became horror. No, that's not possible. What? Sarah's heart was pounding now. Ethan, what is it? The neural interface isn't just reading my thoughts. It's connected to my entire network. And someone's been inside it. For months. Copying data, planting backdoors, preparing. He tried to pull the device off, but his hands wouldn't move. Sarah, I can't take it off. Dr. Reeves swore, reaching for the interface. The moment his fingers touched it, he jerked back with a yelp. It shocked me. It's locked on, Ethan said, his voice tight with controlled panic. Sam built in a security protocol. Once activated, it can only be removed by the original programmer. Which means, Which means you need Samantha, Sarah finished. Her mind was racing. This wasn't goodbye. This was bait. She knew you'd test it. Knew you'd find whatever's in your network. She wanted you to see. But why? Dr. Reeves demanded. What's the endgame? Sarah pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. She accessed the flash drive's contents, searching for anything they'd missed. And there it was, buried in the metadata of a seemingly innocuous file. A timer, counting down. Oh God, she whispered. Ethan, how much of your company's operations run through your central network? Everything. Manufacturing, distribution, communications, the self-driving car fleet. His face went white. Sarah, what did you find? A virus, embedded in the code, set to activate in. She checked the countdown. 47 minutes. When it does, it won't just crash your network. It'll take control of every system. Every autonomous vehicle your company has on the road. Every smart device in every home. The implications hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Fisher's contingency, Ethan said hoarsely. If the contract plan failed, he'd destroy me another way. Turn my technology against the people it was meant to help. The lawsuits alone would bankrupt the company. The deaths, he couldn't finish. Can you stop it? Sarah demanded. Through the interface? I can see it. I can even touch it. But I can't disarm it. The security is too sophisticated. I'd need Samantha, Sarah said again. She built both the interface and the virus. She's the only one who knows how to stop it. Then we find her. Ethan stood, the neural interface still glowing on his head like a crown of thorns. Sarah, I need you to trace her last location. Use whatever resources. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. By now you found my gift within your gift. Clever, wasn't it? You have 46 minutes to find me before people start dying. I'm where it all began, Ethan. Where we first dreamed of changing the world. Come alone. Bring the girl if you want. She's earned the right to see how this ends. Sarah looked up at Ethan, saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. Where it all began, he said softly. She means the garage, where we started Chromatech. Then we go. Sarah was already heading for the door. It's a trap. Obviously. She turned back. But we don't have a choice, do we? Ethan's smile was grim. No, we really don't. The garage was in an industrial district that had been slated for demolition 3 years ago. Abandoned warehouses and broken streetlights. The kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Sarah's stomach twisted as Ethan's car pulled up to a structure that looked like it had given up on life. This is where you built a billion-dollar company, she asked, unable to hide her disbelief. Every empire starts somewhere. Ethan's voice was strained. The neural interface was still glowing on his head, and he'd been flinching periodically, seeing things in his network that made his jaw clench. 38 minutes left. We need to move. The garage door was unlocked. Inside, the space was frozen in time. Whiteboards still covered in old equations, a couch with visible springs, coffee cups growing mold. And in the center, sitting at a workstation surrounded by servers and monitors, was Samantha Gamble. She'd changed from the blood-red suit into jeans and a hoodie, looking more like the engineer she'd been than the corporate predator she'd become. Her fingers flew across a keyboard, code scrolling past too fast for Sarah to read. You came, Samantha said without turning around. Both of you. How romantic. Turn it off, Sam. Ethan's voice was raw. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Don't kill innocent people to prove you're right about me being a monster. A monster? Samantha spun in her chair, and Sarah's breath caught. The woman's eyes were red-rimmed, mascara-stained. She'd been crying. You're not the monster, Ethan. I am. That's what I've spent 3 years becoming, isn't it? The villain in your success story. Then stop, Sarah said, stepping forward. You proved today you're not beyond redemption. You saved us from Kozlov. You gave us the evidence against Fisher. You can still what? Be forgiven. Samantha's laugh was broken glass. There's no forgiveness for what I've done. No redemption arc for the woman who almost murdered thousands of people to hurt one man. She gestured at the monitors. Do you know what that virus will do? It'll turn every autonomous vehicle into a weapon. Every smart home system into a death trap. Ethan's company services 40 million devices. Conservative estimates put casualties in the thousands. Then help me stop it. Ethan moved toward her, but Samantha held up a hand. Stay back. The interface is keyed to proximity sensors. You get within 10 feet of me, it triggers a failsafe. Your brain will fry. So will mine. I'm wearing the companion device. She pulled back her hood, revealing a matching neural interface. We're linked now. What affects you affects me. Poetic, don't you think? Sarah's heart plummeted. You're going to die with him. That's your plan. Murder-suicide dressed up as revenge. No. Samantha's voice broke. My plan was to make him choose. Save his company or save the people who use his technology. Watch him make the same choice he made with me. Save his empire. Let the human cost be damned. Then I'd know for certain who he really was. And then what? Ethan demanded. You'd disarm the virus and we'd all walk away? You'd go to prison with a clean conscience. I'd delete the virus and activate the real one. Samantha's smile was terrible. The one that erases me. Every file, every patent, every line of code I ever wrote. Like I never existed at all. Like our relationship was just a glitch in your origin story. The pain in her voice made Sarah's chest ache. This wasn't about money or revenge anymore. This was about a woman who'd spent 3 years trying to matter to someone who'd written her out of his narrative. Sam, Ethan said softly, I never erased you. I think about you every day. About what we built together, what we could have been. I was wrong to shut you out. Wrong to take all the credit. Wrong to not fight for you when I should have. 35 minutes, Samantha said, checking her screen. Pretty words won't stop the clock. Then tell me how. Ethan's voice was desperate now. Tell me what you want. Money? Credit? A partnership? Name it, Sam. Please. I want you to choose. Samantha stood, and Sarah saw the full extent of her plan. Behind her on the main monitor was a split screen. On one side, Ethan's company network, the virus spreading through it like digital cancer. On the other, a list of names. Thousands of them. People who would die when the virus activated. I can give you the disarm code, Samantha continued. But there's a catch. The neural interface won't just unlock from your head. It'll upload everything. Every memory, every thought, every secret you've ever kept. Your entire consciousness will be copied into my servers. No privacy. No secrets. I'll know everything you've ever thought about me, about us, about why you really threw me away. That's impossible, Dr. Reeves said from the doorway. Sarah hadn't even heard him follow them. The technology doesn't exist too. It does now. Samantha's smile was bitter triumph. I told you I finished what we started. The neural interface doesn't just translate thoughts to commands. It can copy the entire neural pattern. Upload a human consciousness. Digital immortality, Ethan. The dream we used to talk about at 3 in the morning. I made it real. Sarah's mind reeled. The implications were staggering and terrifying. So choose, Samantha said. Keep your privacy, let thousands die, and live with the guilt. Or give me everything. Every memory, every vulnerability, every moment you thought no one was watching, and save them all. Ethan stood frozen, the neural interface pulsing with his racing thoughts. There has to be another way, Sarah said. Some way to disarm the virus without. There isn't. Samantha's voice was flat. I made sure of it. This is his reckoning, Sarah. The moment where he proves whether he really changed, or if he's still the man who chose his empire over the person he loved. That's not fair, Sarah shot back. You're punishing him for protecting himself from someone who was stealing from him. Was I stealing? Or was I taking what I'd earned? Samantha's composure cracked. I wrote half that code. I solved problems he couldn't. But when venture capitalists came calling, when the media wanted interviews, when success finally came, where was my name? Where was my credit? I was the girlfriend, the assistant, the footnote in his genius. The words hit too close to home. Sarah thought of every time she'd been invisible, every moment she'd poured coffee while decisions that shaped lives happened around her like she didn't exist. I see you, she said quietly. I see how much it hurt, how much it still hurts. But Sam, may I call you Sam? This won't fix it. Even if Ethan gives you his memories, even if you see proof that he loved you, respected you, it won't change what happened. It won't make you visible again. Samantha stared at her, and something flickered in those green eyes. Recognition, understanding, the acknowledgement of one invisible woman to another. Then what will? Samantha whispered. Living, Sarah said. Not as a footnote in someone else's story, but as the author of your own. You built something revolutionary. You solved problems that could change the world. That's not nothing, Sam. That's everything. For a heartbeat, Sarah thought she'd gotten through. Thought maybe, impossibly, There was a path where nobody had to die or be destroyed. Then the garage door exploded inward. Fisher stood in the smoking entrance, Kozlov beside him. The Russians somehow free despite being arrested hours ago. And behind them, a team of armed men in tactical gear. "Well," Fisher said, his split lip from Ethan's punch twisted in a grotesque smile. "Isn't this cozy? The genius, the thief, and the coffee girl, all in one place." Samantha's face went white. "How did you? You think I didn't have trackers on everything? Insurance on my insurance." Fisher pulled out a tablet. "Sam, darling, you built a beautiful virus. But I've got the master controls. And I've decided 28 minutes is too long to wait." He tapped the screen. Every monitor in the garage went red. 30 seconds until activation, Fisher announced. And this time, no one gets to be the hero. 20 seconds, Fisher announced, watching the countdown with the satisfied expression of a man who'd already won. Sarah's mind was racing, cataloging everything she knew. Fisher had the master controls. Samantha and Ethan were linked through neural interfaces. The virus was seconds from activation. And she was just a waitress with a dead father's lessons and an accounting degree she'd never finished. Invisible. The word echoed in her mind. Then another word, one her father had whispered in the hospital during his final lucid moments. "Sarah, being invisible isn't a weakness. It's camouflage. Sometimes the person no one's watching is the only one who can act." 15 seconds. Sarah's eyes locked onto Fisher's tablet. He was holding it casually, confidently. Why wouldn't he? She was nobody. No threat. Not worth watching. She lunged. Fisher was fast, but surprise was faster. Sarah crashed into him, her hands closing around the tablet as they both went down. Kozlov moved, but Ethan was somehow there, the neural interface giving him preternatural awareness of the attack vector, his fist connecting with the Russian's solar plexus. 10 seconds. Sarah's fingers flew across the tablet screen, muscle memory from 2 years of accounting classes kicking in. Numbers, codes, patterns. Her father had taught her that everything was just math underneath. Find the pattern, find the weakness. You can't stop it. Fisher was fighting her for the tablet, stronger, bigger, his knee driving into her ribs. Pain exploded through her side. "The code is encrypted. You need the encryption key," Samantha said. She was at her workstation, typing faster than Sarah had ever seen anyone move. "Sarah, the tablet's Bluetooth is active. I can see it. Hold it up." Sarah wrenched the tablet away from Fisher's grasping hands, holding it high even as he grabbed her ankle, pulling her down. 5 seconds. The monitors were screaming red. Somewhere in the city, autonomous vehicles were beginning to execute their deadly protocols. Blue light erupted from Samantha's servers. A wireless connection. Data streaming faster than thought. 3 seconds. Samantha's eyes met Ethan's across the garage. In that moment, Sarah saw everything they'd been to each other. The love, the betrayal, the grief. The shared dream that had turned into a nightmare. "I'm sorry," Samantha whispered. "For all of it." Then she drove her fist into her own neural interface. The device shattered. Blood streamed down Samantha's face from where the circuits had been embedded in her skin. She screamed, a sound of agony that echoed off the concrete walls. And the countdown stopped. Every monitor froze at 1 second. "What did you do?" Ethan gasped. His own interface was sparking, overloaded by the feedback from Samantha's destruction. "Broke the link." Samantha's voice was thick with pain. She swayed, caught herself against the workstation. "When I designed the interfaces, I built in a failsafe. If one user suffered catastrophic neural trauma, the system would shut down to prevent feedback damage to the other user. I just triggered it manually." "You could have killed yourself," Sarah breathed. "Better me than thousands of innocents." Samantha's smile was bloody. "Turns out I'm not quite the monster I thought I was." Fisher was screaming orders at his tactical team, but they seemed confused. The virus had stopped. Their employer was on the ground, disarmed by a coffee girl. The situation had deteriorated from clean execution to chaos. "Stand down." A new voice cut through the confusion. Federal agents poured through the garage door, weapons drawn, badges gleaming. "FBI. Everyone on the ground now." The tactical team dropped their weapons immediately. Mercenaries knew when to fold. Kozlov tried to run and was tackled within 3 steps. Fisher was still sputtering protests as agents cuffed him. "How?" Ethan started. "I called them." Dr. Reeves held up his phone sheepishly. when we left your apartment. Figured federal crimes against technology infrastructure was their jurisdiction. Hope you don't mind. Sarah wanted to laugh, wanted to cry, wanted to collapse. Instead, she crawled to where Samantha sat slumped against her workstation, blood still flowing from the shattered interface. Let me see, Sarah said gently. I'm fine. Samantha's voice was weak. Just broken hardware. You're not hardware, Sarah said. You're human, and humans need help sometimes. She pulled off her borrowed blazer, pressing it against Samantha's head wound. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Or the stupidest. But Samantha's eyes were softer now, the hardness that had defined her since she walked into that boardroom melting away. Sarah, thank you for seeing me, for trying to understand. Thank you for proving me right. You're not a monster. You're just someone who got lost for a while. Paramedics were flooding in now, along with more federal agents. The garage had become a circus of activity. But in their small corner, Sarah kept pressure on Samantha's wound, while Ethan carefully removed his own neural interface, now deactivated and safe. He knelt beside them. Sam, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you built. The neural interface, the algorithms, all of it. Your name will be on every patent, every paper, every product that comes from this technology. No more footnotes. No more invisibility. Tears tracked through the blood on Samantha's face. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I should have done it 3 years ago. Ethan's voice was rough with emotion. You deserved better than I gave you. Better than any of us gave you. And I'm going to spend however long it takes making that right. A paramedic was trying to get to Samantha, but she waved them off for one more moment. The virus, she said to Sarah. The code I uploaded to the tablet. It's not just a kill switch. It's a patch. A fix for the vulnerabilities Fisher exploited. Install it across your network, Ethan. Make your technology safer. Make the dream we had actually mean something. Our dream, Ethan corrected. Our technology. Our achievement. He took her hand. Partners. The way it should have been from the start. Samantha nodded, then finally let the paramedics take her. As they loaded her into an ambulance, federal agents began processing the scene. Sarah found herself sitting on the dusty couch next to Ethan, both of them too exhausted to stand. You saved everyone, Ethan said quietly. Again, that tackle on Fisher. Sarah, you could have been killed. I know. She looked at her scraped palms, already bruising. But I kept thinking about what you said. About being brave enough to speak up. To act. I've spent my whole life being invisible. Today, I decided to be seen. You were magnificent. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Sarah Chun, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever met. Brilliant, brave, compassionate. Don't. She cut him off gently. Don't put me on a pedestal, Ethan. I'm not extraordinary. I'm just someone who did what needed to be done. Like your father taught you to build things, mine taught me to read patterns and stand up for what's right. I'm no hero. Then what are you? Sarah met his eyes, saw her own reflection in that gray gaze. Saw herself the way he saw her. Not as a coffee girl or a scholarship kid or someone defined by what she'd lost, but as someone defined by what she'd chosen to do. I'm someone who's tired of being invisible, she said. Someone who wants to matter. To build something that lasts. To be a partner, not a footnote. Ethan's smile was like sunrise. Then partner with me. Not just for a job when you finish your degree. Partner with me now. Help me rebuild the company into what it should be. Fair, transparent, human. We'll finish your education together, but you'll be learning by doing. Building systems that protect people instead of exploiting them. Creating technology that serves humanity instead of controlling it. That's insane, Sarah said. Probably. I don't have any experience. I'm 24 years old. I don't even have a business card. Neither did I when I started. His thumb traced circles on her palm, sending electricity through her nerves. But I had vision. You have something better. You have integrity. Wisdom. The courage to do what's right even when it costs you everything. Sarah wanted to say no. Wanted to point out all the reasons this was crazy, impulsive, destined to fail. Instead, she said, okay. She squeezed his hand. Partners. Equal credit. Equal say. Equal risk. Equal everything. Ethan agreed. Then, softer. Sarah, I need to ask you something. And you can say no? God knows today has been insane enough without complicating things further. What? He hesitated, and Sarah saw vulnerability flash across his face. The billionaire CEO stripped away, leaving just a man who'd nearly lost everything and found something worth more than money in the wreckage. "Would you have dinner with me?" he asked. "Not as partners, not as colleagues, just as two people who survived something impossible together and want to see what happens next." Sarah's heart was doing something acrobatic in her chest. "That sounds suspiciously like a date." "It is a date. A very explicit, unambiguous, 'I'm interested in you as more than a business partner' date." She should say no. Should point out that they'd known each other for less than 12 hours, that workplace romances were complicated, that she needed time to process everything that had happened. But then she thought about how he'd shielded her body with his own when Kozlov reached for his gun. How he'd refused to sign that contract to protect her freedom. How he'd looked at her like she mattered, like she'd always mattered, like her invisibility had just been everyone else's blindness. "Yes," Sarah said. "Dinner. A date. Let's see what happens next." Ethan's smile could have lit the city. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in front of a conference room that made the morning briefing room look like a closet. The entire top floor of Redmayne Technologies had been converted for today's press conference. Cameras from every major news outlet, journalists whose bylines she'd read for years, investors who controlled billions. And her, in a suit that actually fit, standing beside Ethan Redmayne as he prepared to rewrite his company's history. "You ready for this?" Ethan murmured, his hand finding hers under the podium where cameras couldn't see. 3 weeks of late-night strategy sessions, dinner dates that turned into breakfast meetings, stolen kisses between depositions, and federal testimonies. They'd lived a lifetime in 21 days. "No," Sarah admitted. "But let's do it anyway." Ethan squeezed her hand once, then stepped forward to address the crowd. 3 weeks ago, he began, his voice carrying that natural authority that made people listen. "My company almost became a weapon, not through malice, but through arrogance. My arrogance. I built Redmayne Technologies believing that innovation alone was enough, that good intentions would protect people from bad outcomes. I was wrong." The room was silent except for the click of camera shutters. "I was saved by 2 women. The first, Dr. Samantha Gamble, was my partner in the early days of this company. We built the foundational code together. She solved problems I couldn't solve, saw possibilities I couldn't see. And when success came, I let the world believe it was mine alone. I let her become invisible." Sarah saw reporters exchanging glances. This wasn't the typical corporate apology. This was confession. Dr. Gamble spent 3 years building revolutionary technology, a neural interface that could change how humans interact with machines. She also spent 3 years planning to destroy me for what I'd taken from her. Both things can be true. Both things are true. Ethan pulled up a slide showing the neural interface patents. Samantha's name was first on every single one. Today, Redmayne Technologies is announcing a 50-50 partnership with Gamble Neural Systems. Dr. Gamble will receive full credit, full compensation, and full authority over the development of neural interface technology. More than that, she'll have something I should have given her 3 years ago: recognition, visibility, the acknowledgement that her brilliance made all of this possible. A reporter's hand shot up. "Mr. Redmayne, Dr. Gamble is currently under federal investigation for corporate espionage and attempted terrorism. Are you saying you're partnering with a criminal?" "I'm saying I'm partnering with someone who was pushed to the edge by a system that erases women's contributions while celebrating men's achievements. A system I benefited from and perpetuated." Ethan's voice hardened. "The real criminal is Richard Fisher, my former attorney, who orchestrated a conspiracy to steal our technology and weaponize it. Dr. Gamble ultimately chose to sacrifice herself to save thousands of lives. That's not terrorism. That's heroism born from desperation." Sarah felt her chest tighten. They'd visited Samantha in the hospital twice a week. The damage from the shattered neural interface had been severe: partial hearing loss, persistent migraines, scarring that would never fully heal. But her mind was sharp as ever, and her testimony against Fisher had been devastating. "The second woman who saved my company," Ethan continued, turning to look directly at Sarah, "is someone most of you have never heard of." Sarah Chun was serving coffee in a law firm when she spotted a contract clause that would have destroyed everything. She risked her job, her safety, her future to warn a stranger about danger she had no obligation to see. He gestured for Sarah to join him at the podium. Her legs felt like water, but she moved forward. Cameras swiveled to focus on her. and for a heartbeat, she wanted to disappear back into invisibility. Then she remembered her father's words. "Stand up. Be counted. Matter." "Ms. Chun," Ethan said formally, though his eyes were warm, "has agreed to join Redmayne Technologies as our Chief Compliance Officer and Director of Ethical Technology Development. She'll be finishing her accounting degree while building a new division dedicated to ensuring our technology serves humanity instead of exploiting it." The room erupted in questions. Sarah's head was spinning, but Ethan's hand was steady on her back, grounding her. "Ms. Chun," a journalist called out, "what makes you qualified for such a high-level position with an incomplete degree?" Sarah stepped forward, and her voice came out stronger than she expected. "I'm qualified because I've spent my life watching people abuse power while everyone else looked away. I'm qualified because my father taught me that financial systems are just stories we tell about value, and those stories can either protect people or destroy them. I'm qualified because I see things others miss." She paused, and because Mr. Redmayne had the wisdom to recognize that fresh perspective matters more than decades of experience in a broken system. Someone started clapping, then another. Soon the entire room was applauding, and Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. The armor she'd built from years of being overlooked, finally breaking apart. The press conference continued for another hour. Questions about the neural interface technology, about Fisher's trial, about the company's restructuring. Through it all, Sarah stood beside Ethan as an equal, fielding questions about ethical oversight and technological safeguards with a confidence she hadn't known she possessed. When it finally ended, when the last reporter had filed out and the cameras had stopped rolling, Sarah collapsed into a chair and let out a shaky breath. "That was terrifying," she said. "You were perfect." Ethan sat beside her, loosening his tie. "Did you see their faces when you called out the broken system? That journalist from TechCrunch looked like she wanted to hire you on the spot." "I just told the truth. That's exactly why it was perfect." He turned to face her fully. "Sarah, there's something else I need to tell you. About us. About this partnership." Her heart stuttered. "Okay." The board had concerns. About our relationship, about potential conflicts of interest. They wanted me to choose between a professional partnership and a personal one. Ice flooded Sarah's veins. "What did you tell them?" "I told them that you and I are building something revolutionary. Not just a company, but a model for how businesses should operate. With transparency, with integrity, with recognition that human connections make us stronger, not weaker." His gray eyes held hers. "I told them that if they couldn't trust me to navigate both relationships with honor, they should fire me. Because I'm not giving up either one. Ethan, I'm in love with you." The words tumbled out like he'd been holding them back for weeks. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other for 3 weeks. But Sarah, you changed my life. You saved my company, my reputation, probably my soul. And somewhere between the terror and the federal testimony and the late-night Chinese food while restructuring corporate bylaws, I fell completely, irrevocably in love with you." Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the truth of his words resonating in her bones. "I love you too," she whispered. "Even though it's crazy. Even though we met during the worst day of both our lives. Even though I still can't believe any of this is real. It's real." He cupped her face in his hands. "You're real. This is real. And I promise you, Sarah Chun, you will never be invisible again. Not to me. Not to anyone." He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Sarah was smiling through tears. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now." Ethan's grin was pure mischief. "Now we go visit Sam in the hospital and tell her the board approved her partnership. Then we have that dinner I promised you 3 weeks ago, the actual date that keeps getting postponed by federal investigations. And then we change the world," Sarah finished. Together, Ethan agreed. The next day, they stood in Samantha's hospital room with a bouquet of flowers and a partnership contract. Sam looked tired, healing slowly, but her eyes were clearer than Sarah had ever seen them. "You're really doing this?" Sam asked, staring at the contract. 50-50 split? Full creative control? "Ethan, this is what should have happened 3 years ago," he said firmly. "Sam, I can't undo the past, but I can make sure the future is different. Fair, right?" Samantha looked at Sarah. "You put him up to this." "Actually, it was his idea," Sarah admitted. "I just made sure the contract was airtight. No margin notes, no hidden clauses. Just partnership. Equal and binding. Why? Sam's voice cracked. After everything I did. Because you chose to be a hero when it mattered most, Sarah said. Because you destroyed that interface to save thousands of people you'd never meet. Because you deserve a second chance. We all do. Samantha signed with shaking hands. When she looked up, tears were streaming down her face. Thank you, both of you, for seeing me, for not giving up on me when I'd given up on myself. That's what partners do, Ethan said simply. As they left the hospital, Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number made her stop in her tracks. Congratulations on the press conference, Ms. Chun. Very impressive. You're not as invisible as you think. Some of us have been watching. Let's talk about your father. About what he found before he died. About why certain people wanted him silent. A friend. Sarah's blood ran cold. She showed Ethan the message. His jaw tightened. Your father's heart attack. You said it was stress from something he found. Fraudulent accounting at his firm. He threatened to report it. And then, she couldn't finish. Then he died. Conveniently. Ethan's voice was dangerous now. Sarah, what if it wasn't an accident? She'd wondered. God, she'd wondered for 2 years. But without proof, without resources, she'd been powerless to investigate. We're not powerless anymore, Ethan said, reading her thoughts. We have resources, connections, a legal team that actually works for us. He took her hand. If someone hurt your father, we'll find them. We'll make them answer for it. Sarah looked at the message again, then at Ethan, then at the hospital behind them where Samantha was signing partnership papers that would restore her identity, her legacy, her humanity. 3 weeks ago, she'd been invisible, a coffee girl watching life happen to other people. Now she was someone who mattered, someone who could fight back, someone who could demand truth and justice, not just for strangers in a boardroom, but for the man who'd taught her to never stop looking for the patterns others missed. Okay, she said. Let's find out what really happened. Let's finish what my father started. Ethan pulled her close, and Sarah felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. The invisibility, the powerlessness, the fear that had defined her for so long, gone. Replaced by something stronger. Partnership, love, purpose, and the unshakable certainty that together, they could face whatever came next. Part 9. Satisfying conclusion. 6 months later, Sarah stood in her new office, floor 28, floor-to-ceiling windows, her name on the door in letters that still made her breath catch, and marveled at how completely her life had transformed. The office walls were covered with whiteboards filled with compliance protocols, ethical frameworks, and the beginnings of what she and her team were calling the Visibility Project, a comprehensive program to identify and elevate overlooked talent within tech companies. Her father's photograph sat on her desk, his smile forever frozen in time, but his legacy alive in every system she built to protect people from the predators he'd tried to expose. You're doing it again, Ethan said from the doorway, 2 coffee cups in hand. He'd made it a ritual, bringing her coffee every morning, a reversal that made her smile every time. That look where you can't quite believe this is real. Can you blame me? Sarah accepted the cup, their fingers brushing in a way that still sent electricity through her nerves even after 6 months. A year ago, I was serving coffee. Now I'm restructuring corporate America's approach to ethical technology. You're also late for the university ceremony. Ethan checked his watch. Your graduation starts in an hour. Sarah's stomach fluttered. She'd finished her degree in record time. Online classes, night school, Samantha tutoring her through advanced accounting theory while recovering in the hospital. Today, she'd walk across that stage and receive the diploma her father had started paying for before cancer and corruption had stolen him away. I have something for you first. Ethan pulled a folder from behind his back. Remember that text you got? About your father? Sarah's heart stopped. They'd been investigating quietly for months, following paper trails and digital breadcrumbs. The accounting firm where her father had worked had been dissolved 3 years ago, its partners scattered, its records supposedly destroyed in a convenient fire. We found them, Ethan said quietly. The people responsible. Fisher wasn't just stealing from me. He had his fingers in a dozen firms. Your father discovered one of his shell companies, traced it back to a fraud scheme that had been running for years. When Robert threatened to expose it, Fisher had him. He paused, jaw tight. The heart attack wasn't natural, Sarah. They drugged him, triggered it deliberately, made it look like stress from the cancer. The room tilted. Sarah sat down hard in her chair, the coffee cup forgotten. They murdered him, she whispered. Yes. And now we have proof. Ethan knelt beside her chair. The FBI has everything. Fisher's going away for life. Not just for what he did to us, but for your father's murder. For all of it. There are 3 other victims we've identified. Maybe more. But Sarah, your father's warnings, his documentation, it's all there. He saved it all. Encrypted files, hidden servers, everything investigators need to bring down the entire network. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. He knew. He knew they'd come after him, so he made sure the truth would survive even if he didn't. He protected you, Ethan said. Left you the tools to fight back when you were ready. The accounting degree, the lessons about reading contracts, seeing patterns. He was training you to finish what he started. Sarah pressed her palm against her father's photograph. I miss him so much. I know. Ethan pulled her into his arms. But Sarah, he'd be so proud of you. Of everything you've become. Everything you've built. They sat like that for a long moment, Sarah crying into Ethan's shoulder while he held her steady. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red but clear. Let's go get my diploma, she said. And then let's change the world. For him. The graduation ceremony was small. Sarah had never been one for crowds, but the people who mattered were there. Ethan in the front row, beaming like she'd won a Nobel Prize. Dr. Reeves, who'd somehow become a friend through the chaos. Janet, her former supervisor, who'd sent a card apologizing for not believing in her sooner. And in a wheelchair near the back, wrapped in a scarf to hide the neural interface scars, Samantha Gamble. She'd been released from federal custody 2 months ago, charges dropped in exchange for testimony and community service. She and Sarah had coffee twice a week now, 2 women who'd both been invisible finding power in seeing each other. When Sarah's name was called, when she walked across that stage and accepted her diploma, the applause was thunderous. She looked out at the small crowd and realized she wasn't invisible anymore. Hadn't been for 6 months. Would never be again. That evening, Ethan took her to the garage where everything had almost ended. He'd bought the building, had it renovated into something beautiful. Exposed brick, modern lighting, the old white bars preserved behind glass as a reminder of where dreams began. Sam and I talked. He said as they stood in the space where they'd nearly died. She wants to make this the headquarters for Gamble Neural Systems. Said it feels right. Starting over where we started the first time, but doing it right this time. That's beautiful, Sarah said. There's more. Ethan turned to face her, and his hands were trembling slightly. Sarah, 6 months ago you saved my life. Since then, you've saved my company, my integrity, my soul. You've taught me what partnership really means. What love really means. What it means to see someone completely and choose them anyway. He dropped to one knee. Sarah's heart stopped. I know it's fast, Ethan said, pulling out a ring box. I know people will say it's too soon, that we barely know each other, that this is crazy. But Sarah Chun, I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are my partner in every sense of the word. My equal, my inspiration, my home. Will you marry me? The ring caught the light. Simple, elegant, perfect. Sarah looked at it, then at Ethan, then at the space around them where 3 broken people had found redemption together. Yes, she said, laughing through tears. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Ethan slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like coffee and promises and the future they'd build together. When they finally broke apart, Sarah was smiling so hard her face hurt. I love you, she said. Even though you're ridiculous and impulsive and just proposed in a garage. I love you too, Ethan replied. Even though you're stubborn and brilliant and way too good for me. We're partners, Sarah corrected. Which means we're exactly right for each other. Her phone buzzed. A text from Samantha. He proposed, didn't he? I can feel it in the universe. Say yes, you fool. You two are disgustingly perfect together. Sarah laughed, showing Ethan the message. He grinned and texted back. She said yes. You're officiating the wedding. The response was immediate. Obviously. Someone has to make sure you don't mess this up too. Congratulations, both of you. You earned this happiness. They stayed in the garage until stars appeared in the windows, planning a future that seemed impossible but felt inevitable. A wedding, a life, a company built on principles instead of profit margins. The visibility project expanding to other industries. Neural interface technology that would change the world while protecting the people who used it. And somewhere in all of that, justice for Robert Chun and the other victims of Fisher's greed. Are you scared? Ethan asked as they finally prepared to leave. Of how much has changed? How fast? Sarah considered the question. 6 months ago, she would have said yes. Would have been terrified of visibility, of matching, of taking up space in the world. Now, with her father's killer facing justice, with a degree in her hand and a ring on her finger and a purpose that filled her chest with fire, she felt nothing but certainty. No, she said. I'm not scared anymore. I'm ready. Ready for what? Everything. Sarah took his hand, and together they walked out of the garage where nightmares had become dreams, where invisibility had become power, where 3 broken people had learned that redemption was always possible if you were brave enough to choose it. The city lights spread out before them like possibilities. Somewhere out there, other people were invisible, overlooked, waiting for someone to see them. Other injustices waited to be exposed. Other battles waited to be fought. But tonight, Sarah Chun, former foster kid, former coffee girl, current chief compliance officer and future bride, was simply happy, present in her own life, visible in all the ways that mattered. She looked up at Ethan, at the man who'd learned to share credit and power and love, who'd chosen integrity over empire, who saw her completely and loved what he saw. Let's go home, she said. Our home, Ethan corrected, smiling. Our home, Sarah agreed. And together, hand in hand, partners in every sense of the word, they walked into their future. Thank you so much for reading this story. If you enjoyed Sarah and Ethan's journey from that tense morning briefing to their happily ever after, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know what you thought. Which moment was your favorite? Did you see the twists coming? And what story should I tell next? Your support means everything to this channel. Until next time, remember, you're never as invisible as you think. Sometimes you just need the courage to be seen. Stay beautiful, friends.